Ken Hinkley is now a record-breaking coach. That's right. Our last match against Geelong was his 212th game, which makes him the longest-serving senior coach at one club without a grand final appearance to show for it. The week before that, he tied Brad Scott's record of 211 against the very club that allowed Brad Scott to coach for so long with nothing to show for it. And given the result, kind of goes to show where complacency gets you. The week before that, against the Bulldogs, he also broke a club record with his 42nd goalless quarter. This overtakes Mark Williams' record of 41, which he achieved midway through his 12th season when he was sacked. I should obviously mention this record is from Port Adelaide's AFL era. There isn't a resource as good as AFL tables for the SANFL, but if there was ever going to be a coach at Port Adelaide that did hold that record, it's either going to be John Cahill or Foz Williams, who both coached over 400 games, but with over 75% win rates for both of them, I somehow doubt they have that many goalless quarters. Perhaps the most concerning thing about Ken Hinkley's 42 goalless quarters is the frequency in which they occurred. In his first 5 seasons, from 2013 to 2017, he only had 14 goalless quarters. But in his 6th season, up until his 10th, which we're only partway through, he's had 28. Double the first 5. But go on, tell me about how bad Port Adelaide were when Ken Hinkley came in. Obviously there's the obligatory giving Ken Hinkley credit for where he brought the club in 2013, and 2014 was still a good season with the preliminary final appearance. But like I said in my previous video, the jump from good to great had to happen eventually, and it still hasn't. Even though the 2020 and 21 seasons were easily the best seasons Ken Hinkley's coached, the goalless quarter stat is one that should never be overlooked. I mean, for goodness sakes, Matthew Primus coached 12 goalless quarters, and he coached a little over 2 seasons. Sure, that's 6 per season, but look at the list he had. Then of course Williams with his 41, but he coached into his 12th season. And by the end of that, his list was terrible. Otherwise Matthew Primus wouldn't have averaged so many per season. Hinkley, on the other hand, never really had a terrible list at his disposal. 2013 was the year Chad Wingard really came into his own, and in Ken's first off-season he drafted Ollie Wines, who looked like a superstar right from the start. Couple those two blokes with the fact that Matthew Primus put the wheels in motion for Darren Burgess to come back to the club for 2013, and it becomes apparent that maybe, just maybe, that side that Ken Hinkley took over wasn't that terrible. Also, need I mention the obvious, Williams, premiership coach, Hinkley, serial failure. If I have to say it 1,000,000 times, I will. The jump from good to great has to happen eventually. In fact, it probably should have happened a long time ago. If you cast your eye back to 2014, and you watched that elimination final between Port and Richmond, if someone sat there and told me that one of these teams is going to become one of the dynasties of the modern era, all I would have had to do was look at the score to tell you which one I thought it was. Only I couldn't have been more wrong. That Port Adelaide team looked primed to do something absolutely special. Richmond, on the other hand, even though they managed to scrape into finals that year, had easily been the most underachieving side of the 21st century. Yet against the odds, despite so much underachieving from Damien Hardwick, he managed to turn that Richmond side into a dynasty of the modern era. Now, a Ken Hinkley defender would probably chime in and say, see, you have to give the coach a chance. Well, he won his first flag in his 8th season. Ken Hinkley's partway through his 10th and hasn't really looked like getting close to that. He's also under seemingly no pressure, whereas Damien Hardwick was under a lot of pressure to perform at Richmond and probably would have been sacked after 2017 if not for that premiership. The other thing is, in the AFL world, where coaches are presumably making about $1 million a year, especially if they're long-standing coaches, you shouldn't just get to luck into that position and get to hold it for so long with nothing to show for it. Well, unless the club is run by David Koch. In May of 2017, he said that he thought Ken Hinkley can be a 10-year coach. By June, he said that he wants Ken Hinkley to be a 10-year coach. That's not a metric for success. That's not what you should base your decisions for contracts on. Sure enough, after 2017, even though Ken Hinkley asked to be released from his duty at Port Adelaide to coach Gold Coast, we'd managed to sign him to another contract. He still had a year to run to go all the way to the end of 2018, and we signed him on till the end of 2021. The sanity I'd have saved if he had just been allowed to walk. That level of complacency has set the groundwork for the next 6+ years to be wasted. Now, I know what you're thinking. 2017 was 5 years ago. I'm aware of that. But after 2020, despite the fact that Ken Hinkley was contracted to the end of 2021, He was signed until the end of 2023. We made the same mistake twice and gave that fraud another contract extension with a year to run. A new coach won't come in and wave a magic wand to fix us, but it clearly is the obvious solution that has been ignored for so long for unknown reasons, really. So as we celebrate Ken Hinkley writing himself into the history books at Port Adelaide for all the wrong reasons, let's just remember some things. This situation has gone on way longer than it's needed to, and the word on the street is that he's backed in until the end of this season at the very least. So I urge every Port Adelaide member to make your presence felt, whether that be by not going to games, sending letters or phone calls to the club, writing posts on social media, please not abusive ones, because it really irks me how Port Adelaide figures call valid criticism abuse. We're better than that. Let's not prove them right. Or even something as simple as sharing this video. Whatever you think it is that you can do to help make the message felt that Port Adelaide fans do not want Ken Hinkley in charge, do what that may be. In the meantime, make sure you've got a second team to keep your eye on, because it's going to be a long time before we see any real action on this topic. I've picked Freo personally, but until next time, catch you guys later.